Hi, I'm Slither. I'm a senior admin on Syndom, and this video is about finding information out in character and a little bit out of character on Syndom. So, by this point, if you've watched these videos, excuse me one sec, I'm just going to move my thing over here. If you've watched these videos, you have a basic understanding of Syndom and how it works, but you are probably still in a position where there's a lot of information you don't have. Unless you've played the game for a while, you're not going to have all the information. And asking out of character on game help or X help or in local out of character chat is one of the ways to find that information out. But there are better ways, ways that will increase your enjoyment of the game, your immersion in the game, and other people's as well, because constantly answering a stream of out-of-character questions can be immersion-breaking for others. So typically when someone starts the game, they have no knowledge of the world. Maybe they've played Shadowrun or Cyberpunk 2020 or a game like that in a tabletop setting, or they've played Deus Ex or something else. And so they have, and they've seen movies and read books. And they have a general idea of what Cyberpunk is, but not necessarily what Syndom's flavor of Cyberpunk is. They don't know how certain things work in the world that maybe they feel their character should know. So I'm going to give you some strategies for dealing with that, because we're not going to necessarily give you that information out of character. You're going to have to find it out in character, which is a good thing in a role-playing game because it involves role-playing. So, a couple disclaimers, things that come up rather often in the game. People don't want to ask questions in character because they're afraid it'll make their character look stupid. This is, I can totally understand why people would think that, and why they would be reluctant to ask questions in character. But again, role-playing game, so you're going to have to. So I'm going to give you some strategies to deal with that. One, it doesn't make you look stupid. There are plenty of long-time players who start new characters, myself included, and for two different reasons will ask a number of in-character questions about the world. One, Withmore City, which is where the game takes place, is its own little world. It's a geodesic dome in the middle of the Badlands in like LA, between like LA and Vegas or something. I don't even know where it is. It's in a fantasy world. So it's in the middle of nowhere, and the laws that exist in Withmore City are completely different than the laws that exist outside it, because corporations control all of Withmore City. So if you've played Shadowrun, think of it like how the corporations on their own property in Shadowrun can like do whatever they want, and some corporations own like whole countries, so they can do whatever they want there, and the outside laws are not applicable. It's similar to that. So if you're not from Withmore City, which your character won't be if you're a new player, or even a returning player in most cases, you aren't going to know how things work in the city. And so it's totally okay to ask. And we'll go over how to ask and different methods for asking it a little bit. If your character's looking for information on things they should know because of their skills, it's a little bit more difficult, and there's a little bit more of a gray area there, like how do I do mechanic stuff if I'm a mechanic and I don't know the actual mechanics of mechanicking. So, again, it's okay to ask. People are not going to give you a hard time. There are long-time players that have played a specific type of character for years and years and years, and then play a different character that has a different set of skills, and it's like playing a whole different game, and they have to learn a bunch of things over again. And they're not afraid because they know that it's not going to make them look stupid. So let's talk about ways you can ask for things, right? You could phrase something in character like, remind me what the deal is with this. Or, I took a vat nap recently. What's the deal with? And vat nap being like, you were killed recently. So you could be like, oh, right before I moved here, I died, and I lost 10 years of my life. And it can be a lie. It doesn't actually have to be true. And regardless of if somebody believes you or not, they don't know your history. So what the fuck? They don't know that you're new or they don't know that they don't think you're dumb. They just think you don't know about this thing. You can also say, like, this is a different setup than I'm used to. Can you walk me through this? Like, imagine you're like you do like music production for a living, and you are used to a specific set of equipment, and then you go to Japan, and they have a completely different set of equipment there. They're not going to think that you're not an audio engineer and you're stupid just because you're like, oh, I'm used to a different thing, and you're going to need to explain to me how this thing works, and once you explain it, I'll be able to do it. You can say, like, where I'm from, things are different. How does X work here? These are just simple ways to not just say, hey, I don't get it. They tell the other person that, like, hey, I probably should know this, and I don't, like, from an out-of-character perspective. So, like, don't be a dick. If you have questions about the world, where should you go to ask them? Well, the best place to ask is on the sick for general knowledge stuff. If you're like, I need to know how to find Acme whatever, you can ask on the sick, and most of the time people are going to give you the correct answer and not be jerks about it, because they're going to assume that you're a somewhat new player, and they're going to give you legit information. Now, some people might lie, that sucks, but it's totally possible. If you want to catch up on the world, you can read grid news posts. So if you haven't logged into the grid, there's a video on here on how to do that. You log into the grid, you go to the Withmore globe, and you can read a bunch of recent happenings, big ticket things. Those are potentially propaganda and not exactly or accurate to what happened. So just keep that in mind, because corporations put those out. You can read forum posts in Metro Chat and advertisements, and you can find out what people are talking about and start getting a sense for the role play and recent things, which you can then use in conversations to show that you know about the world and what's going on. We have a lore section on the website, which has detailed information on general knowledge subjects, and you can read that, and it's the only case where you can read something out of character and use it in character, because we also make that information available through holograms. So Imi, who you saw when you first walked in, is a hologram, and you can ask them things, and they're going to pull that information directly from our lore pages, our wiki. And there's holograms on Gold, too. Find people that are talking, probably at a bar, and politely interrupt them, or don't be polite about it, and ask your question. Bonus, you meet new people. It gives you a reason to talk to people. Ask bartenders what the chatter is. That's a specific word, chatter. If you ask a bartender what the chatter is, then they're going to respond if you meet certain skill and charisma and other checks, potentially. They're going to respond with some information about what's going on in the world lately. Examine everything. This is more of an out-of-character suggestion, but you can examine just about everything in the game. Yourself, other players, objects that are in rooms that are highlighted in blue, cars, vehicles, pets, weapons, anything that's in your inventory. Everything has an examine that you can look at for commands that you can run on them. Use the help files. So we have tons of help files. Type help gen, G-E-N, dash index for like a list of everything. You can just type help to get like a list of like common stuff. @newbie is a great thing to read to learn basics. And help files are cross-linked, so they'll have a See Also section if you want to dive deeper into a specific subject. And we have tons of help files. You can see when they've last been updated. They're a really good resource. Help job, help apartment. These are common things that come up. How do I get a job? Type help job. It'll explain a lot of it. Ask a bartender where to find a job. They might tell you something. It might be automated. It might be a GM picking up that puppet, or it might be a PC that's a bartender, and they're going to help you too. Ask other players where to find a job. Ask on the sick. And last but not least, find a mentor, right? A mentor could be someone who's been playing 3 weeks longer than you. They're going to have a ton more of information, and they're going to be able to give it to you. They might request something in return, like you do a job for them, or you owe them a favor down the line. But that's good role-playing, and they should be doing that. If you aren't doing that, you should be. And then in a month, you be a mentor to someone newer, but you keep up with your mentor. If you want to be a mechanic, find somebody who's a mechanic and ask them to train you in character. Say that you were a journeyman before and you want to polish your skills or something. You want to be a street samurai, find one and be like, I want to be your apprentice. I'll do the shit jobs that you don't want to do, and you teach me all the cool shit, right? Great way to get role play. So, in summary, ask on the sick, read the grid, read the lore pages / wiki or talk to holograms, find folks who are talking and ask your questions, ask bartenders what the chatter is, ask them where to find a job, examine everything, use the help files, help job, help apartment, all the other ones, find a mentor, don't be afraid to ask questions because no one's going to think you're stupid. Every single person who you're talking to has been through exactly what you've been through, probably minus this video because they might not have seen this video because it didn't exist. And so they had less information to start with. So they're gonna empathize, trust me, and they're gonna be okay with answering your questions. And especially if you can parlay that into some role play where you're doing a job for someone in exchange for information, I mean, it's a win-win. Good luck.